I think our next guest is using the height of modern technology, Ollie Pendered from Community Energy South. Is live streaming into us, I believe. So I have no control over the technology. The wizards at the back will do it. Let's see what happens.
Well, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you, but it would have been more of a pleasure if I'd been up in Suffolk with you all. And it's actually an area where I started my energy journey in Suffolk, because I used to work for National Grid, and I was responsible for their community relations. So actually visiting parishes, and some of you may remember Bramford to Twinstead, when National Grid were talking about upgrading an overhead line that went through your region, and obviously connected into Sizewell. And it was my job to set up all the parish meetings and try and find them as well in the dark and attend them. So I spent quite a lot of time in Suffolk in all, and but it's what started me really on the journey on the community energy journey, and working with communities on their own energy. And because it occurred to me that at that stage in early 2000, that people really didn't know much about where electricity came from or how it got to them at their homes or their communities. And we were on that journey during that Bramford to Twinstead project, and where it became very live with big pylons coming through the countryside and Sizewell Power Station and what have you. So I'm grateful to Suffolk for that, and it's great to be able to be talking to you about community energy and sort of showcasing the wonderful work that communities are doing across the southeast of England, and hoping that we can stimulate that within Suffolk. So sort of run on 20 years. I'm currently the Chief Executive of Community Energy South, and I'll explain a little bit about that. I'm also the co-founder of a company called Riding Sunbeams, which is directly powering railways with renewable energy, which is a very exciting journey to be on, and I'll touch on that as well. I'm also a director of Community Energy England, and take that role very responsibly in linking up with the team at Community Energy England. And I believe Philip has been here this morning and talking to you. So there may be an overlap on sort of the national perspective, but it's important that we take that into account at the moment with COP26 and everything that's going on, and your interest to decarbonise as communities. And I've also been the chair of the Greater Brighton City Region Energy Panel, which worked alongside a water panel, which fed into that part of the country's region, and all the leaders deciding on the future of net zero and zero carbon. So there's also some experience there. And I've worked in the local energy team at BEIS, or the Department of Energy and Climate Change, and led on community energy as well. So I've got a machine on my phone that's going to move the slides on, which is very exciting when it connects. Yes, it works. So I'll share the slides afterwards, and I'll just use them as a guide to go through with you. I've got about 20 minutes, and then we can hopefully have some questions, and I can get to speak to some of you and hear from you. So Community Energy South, we set up in 2013 as an umbrella group for the region in the southeast of England. And we set up from a project that started in Sussex. And I'll go into that in a little bit in a minute. But we trained up 12 community energy groups in 2011 over a year-long programme, which was funded by the Cabinet Office. And those groups are still all up and running at the moment. And what happened was, during that process of setting up those 12 community energy groups, we set up Community Energy South as a representative group for the 12. And And sort of 9 years on, here we still are. And there are about 42 community energy groups in the southeast of England. And we're currently mentoring 14 startup groups. So what you've got an industry in the community energy sector in the southeast that has been operating for nearly 10 years and are very advanced. Some groups have real expertise, and then other groups are new. And they're all cooperatives or community benefit societies, and they work together. So our role in, and that's right, I've got to find the app again to move my slide along. So our role in Community Energy South is to basically act as a voice for the sector, and we feed into Community Energy England. We also look at capacity building for local and community energy groups. So hopefully we're a point of contact for new community energy groups wanting to start up and link up with other more advanced community energy groups. But we also work in innovation and new business models, which is a big part of the community energy sector. And the community energy sector was really built up, particularly in rural areas, to look at innovation, look at that gap that is needed in the energy market. And it's a very exciting market for young people coming into it. It's full of innovation and needs to innovate. You know, if there's a solar farm in your neighboring community, why on earth can't you buy the power directly from that solar farm? And that needs innovation, and the energy market is evolving. And it's a really exciting time for the energy market, for young people in particular, not least because of COP26 and the government's net zero strategy, but because of this innovation, because the energy market needs to be reinvented to come to modern times. And our young people coming through universities are not going to stand for it. So, you know, we've got to adapt. People want to use renewable energy. They don't want to use something that's powered by coal or, you know, or gas and what have you. So, so it's a really exciting stage to come to. And our role, we see that as a kind of role in between communities and innovators and getting business models up and running. So a little bit of background, Avesco, so if any of you know Lewis, which is where I'm speaking from, is down on the south coast in Sussex. Avesco set up in 2007 as a community energy group, and they have actually there's a £1 Lewis pound note that Avesco's on, which is live currency within the community. This was a £5,000 note that the district council actually printed off to invest in a community energy scheme on a roof. But Avesco started up in 2009 when they put solar on Harvey's Brewery roof, on the depot roof of Harvey's Brewery, who had a very high energy usage for cooling and for running the brewery. And the solar panels, there's about 100 kilowatts of solar panels, and it cost about £300,000 at the time. And we went to the community in Lewis and raised a share offer under a community benefit society, so people could buy shares in the solar scheme that powered the Harvey's Brewery. And they have those shares for 25 years. They're not transferable, they are redeemable. And people get an interest between 4 and 7% on those shares at that time. And people are very proud of it. And actually, a lot of people don't take their interest. They give it back to the society to reinvest it in community benefit. And it meant that Avesco could actually employ a part-time employee for 25 years to manage this scheme and a whole host of other schemes now, but also act as an energy advisor scheme to the local district. And that's really important. So that's why we set up Community Energy South, because the Avesco model worked so well, and the phone was ringing all the time in the Avesco office asking from other community groups how to do it. And actually, there was one group that beat Avesco to it, which was in Suffolk at the time on a school, and John Taylor can remind me who that is later. But they were together in the race. So we set up Community South because of Avesco, and Avesco have won all sorts of international awards for that work. Sorry, I'm just connecting my thing again. So at the same time, this is important because I'll come back to it. Neighbouring the town of Avesco is a village called Barkham. It's got 850 residents, and its energy bill last year, those residents combined spent £1.5 million on their energy in the village, and that was all money that left the economy. So we did a rural community energy plan just for the parish. So we looked at the LED lighting, we did home energy surveys, we did where could community solar go, and all sorts of different work, looking at a hydro stream because it's got a river and all sorts. And we did a very detailed energy plan for the rural community. And that's really important, I think, for parishes. And I know that Alex Templeton is doing a workshop afterwards. And I think that the parishes should discuss that because it's really important to have a plan for your community. And I'll come back to that in a little while. So in 2018, 2019, when we did our mentoring of the new groups in Sussex, this is what the map of community energy looked like sort of 5 years on. So the green dots are the live community energy groups. The red dots are energy champions working in those communities to provide energy advice. So one-to-one energy advice, bill checking and what have you, through the big energy saving network. And that's really important at the moment because look what's happening to the energy market. There are energy companies falling over themselves. People aren't registered for warm home discount. You know, people need their hand-holding with this. And it's a really important part. And at the time, we were also doing a faith and power work as well, working with Nepalese communities and other communities within the southeast, just talking about energy, and that was really exciting. You really have an avid group because it's complicated. Okay, and solar schools. So this is the top left hand shows a bar chart of the history of solar schools, and it just gives you an overview. So within an 8-year period, 84 community energy schools were developed. The first year was very complicated, and there were years like 2016 was a very high install date because of the feed-in tariff, you know, the regulatory, the stimulators for the solar industry was very high in 2016. So there were lots of installs, and again in 2018, 2019. So, but really what this tells me is that in 2012, it seemed quite complicated to do community energy, but actually 8 years later, 84 schools had community solar on, over 4 megawatts of power, 60,000 kids going to school with solar that's owned and invested in by the community. And that's really fundamental. And, you know, consider at the moment how much people have money in savings accounts that is earning just 0.5%. You know, it could be invested in local renewable energy projects that could benefit local people. So, you know, community wealth and the ability to be able to invest into your own renewable energy is a real asset and something that could be really developed fast to try and get us to decarbonisation. This is the face of community energy at the moment. So the gentleman in the top right-hand corner is our current Community Energy Person of the Year, Nick Rouse, and he's in his 80s. He volunteers every day for a community energy group. He's amazing. And a couple of years ago, before COVID, he invented a solar bike where 5,000 kids at STEM events went on it in a year. And in the bottom left-hand corner, North Kensington Community Energy launched a scheme about a year and a half ago, and they are the community that neighbours Grenfell. So, and you could have invested at that time and got 3% for their solar scheme going on a community building near to Grenfell. So that's very exciting. So a little bit about the sector and the community energy sector. Community Energy England undertake an annual report of the community energy sector. They have a 2030 vision that they did a year ago, and they modelled a 10-fold increase in the community energy sector. And that's really fundamental. Actually, they said that's an average 10, but it could go up to 20 times larger. And with the ability to employ 8,700 jobs. You know, it's a real change. There are now over 320 groups across England developing and owning solar farms, to heat projects, to transport projects. It's a really good way of, you know, moving the industry forward and taking control. So Community Energy England, we work alongside them. They're based up in Sheffield. Philip is here. But do sign up to them. I'll give you the details in this presentation. And you can link up with all the other groups around the UK doing amazing projects. And there's a State of the Sector report. This is State of the Sector report for 2020. And it gives you all the detail and background into all the different projects, the community benefit, the education projects, community transport, and energy efficiency, and all the amazing groups that are doing this. So you're never alone when you want to start up a project. There's always, through Community Energy England and Community Energy South, we can link you up with other groups who are desperate to share what they've learned and scale up. And there's a map of community energy, and you can see in Norfolk and Suffolk, we need more community energy groups, and there's a real ability for that. I'll share these slides with everybody, but there's a where to find support. Go to the Community Energy England website, and there's all sorts of access that you can get, and through John Taylor at the Greater South East Energy Hub, who I know is here as well. And for those of you who like tweeting and all sorts, you know, do tweet Community Energy England and you know, join the page. So with Community Energy South, we have a monthly newsletter where we showcase community energy projects, and also we run a monthly webinar. So we've just had one yesterday on EV car sharing. And it's very exciting. So please do join up. On average, we have about 120 people on each webinar every month. And it's a really good way of linking in with other communities and new communities and old. So we've designed that specifically for that. Now, so going back to our roots with mentoring, we actually, with Essex County Council originally, we set up something called Community Energy Pathways, which is a mentoring programme for new community energy groups. And we're running that currently in Essex, Hampshire, South Downs, and actually just starting off in Surrey County Council as well. And it's a really exciting programme that we put together. It's based on communications and mapping all the communities and finding out which communities are interested in community energy, and then bringing them together and taking them through a training programme. And we're having great results. In Hampshire, in Essex, I'll show you in a minute, we've got 8 groups now established and raising funds through the Rural Community Energy Fund and supported by our mentoring team. And that continues. So, and through the Eastern New Energy Project, we can do that to a certain extent in Suffolk and Norfolk, and but we're always there to access that. So do get in contact about our pathways. Now, the importance of pathways, and I just wanted to show you this for those of you from the local authority looking at net zero, is that you would have a local area energy plan and strategy towards climate change. But what we need to do is grow that network, that community energy network, from within a region. And there's a good reason for that. And that's it. So we've done that in Essex. This is the example from Essex, where we've got Saffron Walden, Colchester, Danbury, Southend, Tollesbury, Debden, Braintree, now all established as community energy groups and working together within a framework. And that's important because Essex County Council can now go to that network and with consultations or pass by them their strategy on climate change and get them to work together. And then we can look at new opportunities on more of a scale and a framework position. And that's important. We've established that in Essex, Hampshire, South Hants National Park, and then now starting that in Surrey as well, which means that all the networks that we've got already in Sussex can now all work together as a network and people can feed in and share best practice. So it's really connected from a community perspective. Right, partnerships for the sector, really important. UK Power Networks is our best friend. And that's important because they supply power across the southeast through, and in the EDN, what they call the Eastern region. And their goals are very aligned with the community energy sector. So we support renewable energy and we support vulnerable communities with their energy. And that's very aligned with the power networks. And so the power networks and the gas networks should really love community energy and working with us. And it's really important from a connections perspective as well. And also the water companies should as well. And the Environment Agency do a lot of pumping. They require power. You know, all of these things which relate to a local community are important and should align. So we build partnerships with community energy for the sector and obviously work with Great South East Energy Hub as well. And within the South East region, a lot of you will be aware there's an energy strategy that was developed between CELEP, the South East LEP, Coast to Capital and Enterprise M3, which fed into a regional energy strategy, and community energy is embedded in that, which is very helpful. And then to take that to a really up-to-date line, we now have the government's net zero strategy. And have a look at it from page 272 onwards and around there, 262 to 280. There's a whole section on community energy and the importance of driving the community energy sector for net zero and getting communities involved with this whole agenda. I'll pass on to that, but you'll see it in my slides. In Brighton, we've established with the local authority working with the community energy sector 10 pledges for tackling climate change. That includes building a kelp forest, and the community energy sector have come together to invest with Sussex Wildlife Trust to actually invest in the kelp officer. So the community energy has developed a community benefit fund, and we're investing that in the kelp officer to build the kelp forests and to create more carbon saving. So it's very circular. But these 10 pledges that were pledged by the region include zero emission fleets, EV charging points, rewilding, low carbon housing, public buildings, innovation, lobbying the government. And that's now embedded at the regional level, and that's really important for the community energy sector. It means that we can thrive and get the support of local authorities. Oh. Keep on forgetting I've got the app, excuse me. So going back to that energy plan at the very beginning that we talked about, I'm just going to show you a project that we've developed called Communiheat, where we've taken the energy plan that we did in 2012 in this rural community of 800 homes, and then we've built a roadmap for that community now to go to low carbon. So to come off oil, 80% of the village uses oil for heat, and every household now has its own plan to come off oil. So what we're discovering is that some people in the village want to go to air source heat pumps now and come off oil. So, and this will, I'm sure, interest a lot of you, because I'm sure a fair few of you are from rural communities and use oil. So a percentage of the village want to go now off oil. So we're capturing that amount. We've got another group of the community that would like to go by 2025, and those that want to go by 2030. So what we're doing is we're developing a plan for that with UK Power Networks to also reinforce the grid for the community to take on electric heating and electric cars, but also to work with the supply chain. So the supply chain know when they can focus on that one community and what efficiencies there are for them to focus on that one community. So it's a plan, a roadmap for a rural community to go to net zero. And it's been great that we've been working with UK Power Networks on that, and that they realise the benefit of it for their future reinforcement programme. There's some information about the village, but typically rural villages have much higher energy output. And like I said, this one, with about 600 homes, they spend 1.5 million a year on powering their community, on energy, which leaves the economy. Now, we want to try and keep that money in the economy. So one big issue that we're working out with this community heat project and rural community is, how do we finance it? How do we, some people have the money in the bank, they'll just do it from savings, you know, the pioneers. And now there's a government grant, isn't there, for £5,000. But in rural communities, heat pumps are generally up to about £12,000 at the moment. So how do we bridge that gap? And there's something really brilliant that's being developed by the industry, which is community municipal bonds, where you combine PWLB funding with community finance and community energy. And that's really important. But we're also working with the credit union banks and a company called Lendology, who are doing low interest loans for retrofits. And that's something we really need to push forward. You know, we need to find these solutions for rural communities to be able to lend money at low rates so that they can do insulation and transition to low carbon heating. It's 30% of the carbon for rural communities on average. So, and if we can find a way for those communities to afford it, we can get the supply chain working as well. And that's really important, to get local jobs, people skilled up and working locally and keeping the money in the economy. Right, so another innovation that Community Energy South have done is with riding sunbeams. So one of our community energy groups back in 2012 in our mentoring program said, why can't we just power the railways? So we've developed a program called Riding Sunbeams, and we're currently working with a community group down in East Sussex to connect the first multi-megawatt solar park to the railway, which will directly connect it and create an annual community benefit fund. And that's very exciting. And it's a global changer, really. You know, if we want to decarbonize, we need to get people towards public transport and moving in a better way out of diesel and fuel cars. And we are going to have to go there at some point in the next decade. And our transport systems have got to improve and got to be run and decarbonised as well. It's the UK's highest energy user is the railways. But if you travel by train, it's a massive decarbonisation on your journey, 60 times, I think, better than travelling by car. So it's a very exciting project, our Riding Sunbeams. You know, the heart of it has been the community energy sector. So just to take it a little bit further away, over in India, Modi and the Indian government are talking about electrifying all of their railways. And that's a strategy because India import all of their oil and coal. So it's important, you know, that we share the knowledge that we're developing here in the southeast of England to influence what's happening around the world. And this is major decarbonisation. If Indian Railways can start looking at powering their railways with renewable energy, which they are, and we're really excited that we've raised that through Riding Sunbeams as a regional strategy and a international strategy. So lots of key opportunities for the sector, COP26 at the moment, peer learning through the community energy pathways and community energy sector, and obviously the Eastern New Energy Project as well. I'll share this where you can find support. So, yeah, before we go on to questions, Mr. Chairman, I'd keep in touch with Community Energy South. You can link up with us through our newsletter, join our webinars, or get in contact if you do want to set up a community energy project, or talk to Alex today in the workshop, and we can link you up with other groups and our mentoring team. So thank you very much. Thanks for your patience and listening. Hopefully, I'll hear from a few of you if you've got any questions.
You managed the technology extremely well.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any burning questions for Ollie?
I didn't know if you can see me or not, so probably not a benefit anyway. Since the demise of the feed-in tariff, I can't see the financial viability of moderate scale solar PV. Can you give an outline of how it might work, please?
Yeah, sure. No, I've got that. Yeah, it is. So a lot of our groups are now raising share offers and are launching them in line with COP26. Look, the market at the moment is really linked. You've got to find buildings or off-takers that have a high energy usage, and also between 50 and 100 kilowatts really. But so that you have a PPA with the energy user. But we are getting share offers. I'm seeing community groups launch projects still, and as long as they've got an organisation or a building where it's got high energy usage, you can mix a direct wire PPA, so where people can actually buy the power from the solar, then it's still stacking up. And the price of panels are also reducing. So it's very much working still. And look at what's happened to the price of power over the last month. So, and it would be good to get to a stage with households where we can really make that efficient for households as well, with community buying schemes, but it's not quite there yet. But larger users.
Gentleman in the middle, I think, in the blue.
Hi. So if you're planning a community energy scheme of PV, what would the figure of about 3,500 kilowatts per household per year be the right sort of number? And what would be a typical cost, perhaps, would you like to estimate for a 500 kilowatt system, ground mounted adjacent to an 11,000 volt grid connection?
Oh. I have to go to my technical teams for that. But yeah, we're looking, roughly £1,000 per kilowatt or less.
Yeah, gentleman at the back to the right.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of us have been lobbied about the local energy bill. How much of a game changer would it be if the legislation was made to work for small-scale energy producers? Just to add to that, this was discussed at Suffolk County Council yesterday afternoon, and it was cross-party support for the bill.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it would be fundamental. Look, energy bills on Ofgem are so complicated now. It's been built up with, we built the energy market. It's evolved over the last 20 years with, covered in regulation. And why can't one person own solar power that they sell to another? So the electricity bill is really fundamental in all of this. And look at solar farms. We've got a solar farm near where I have, and people always say to me, well, why can't I just buy the solar from there? So I'm really pleased that you've got behind the electricity bill, and we've got to keep pushing our members of parliament and Ofgem on that whole issue and keep pushing it. I feel confident that we'll get there.
Thanks, Ollie. If we can leave it there. Well, thanks very much for your expertise today, and it's nice. I think we first spoke about 5 years ago, and you've obviously been very successful since then with the ideas that you were starting up then, so well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, and sorry I couldn't join in person, but you wouldn't want me to because I'm at the tail end of an isolation, so yeah. But I know that Alex Templeton and John Taylor, who I work with very closely, are with you, so do catch up with them on the community energy sector, and get in contact if you've got any local communities that want to do this.
Many thanks, Ollie. Thanks for your excellent input. Round of applause.